Welcome to the Housing Market Podcast. This is a solo episode where I'm going to share a couple of things. First of all, just a little bit of perspective on the front end on the NAR settlement coming up in July. We're bearing down on that. But really, the lion's share of this is going to be being the educator in this market. I think now more than ever, that is our job, to step out in the market confidently, to be the educator. And I'm going to cover a number of different things and give you all the resources so that you can then take those and step into your market as the expert. So let's jump in. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. I want to talk about a couple of things here. This is going to be a podcast we don't have a guest on. I'm just going to be talking about a couple of things that I think are critically important right now. We can't ignore the NAR proposed settlements coming up in July. We'll talk just a little bit about that. But I think the bigger topic is, what do we need to be doing right now as the educators out in our market? So we'll take the next, 15 to 20 minutes. This is not going to be a full-length podcast, but we're going to take this time and talk about being the educator. That's my goal for you here. And, as always, if you know somebody that needs to be the educator, share this with them, share this podcast with them. But, we are fast approaching July, which is the date that's been proposed for the NAR settlement. There's so much information out there in the market that we have access to. I'm not going to get into the technical pieces of it. We've had Alicia Essig on the podcast. She does a phenomenal job of what to say in this market to buyers to really establish value. The line that she uses, I want to apply for the job to become your agent. I love that idea. But at the end of the day, here's what I do know. And if you followed Keeping Current Matters, we've talked about this. There's some very real signs in the market from studies that have been done that sort of point to a couple of things. One, that buyers want information and they want expertise. And two, they're very much willing to pay for that information and expertise. Bright MLS did a study there, a large MLS here on the East Coast, where they asked the question to potential buyers, do you want someone to be the guide, to be helpful in the process? And 75% of them said, I absolutely do want somebody to help guide me through that process. And, I think as we think about that, our job right now is to show up as the guide. If this was a story, Donald Miller wrote a book called Building a Story Brand, and he has two very clear roles in the story: the guide and the hero. Right, the home buyer in this process is they're the guide, and they're saying that they want that guidance through the process. We just need to show up and help them achieve the dream of home ownership. I'm looking at the study as well. 91% of the respondents said it'd be very stressful to navigate the home buying process without a real estate agent or broker. 87% said they believe a real estate agent or broker is an essential, trusted advisor for a home buyer. So that's our job, is to show up as the guide and to be the educator. Now, I think right now, some of the thoughts that I have on this are, everything changed in the business, but nothing changed. Everything changed relative to how we're going to operate with buyers, but nothing changed relative to our need to be out in the market. Nothing changed relative to our need to be the educator. Nothing changed relative to our need to help guide people through the process. And so we need to confidently step into that and be the educator across the markets that we serve and the clients that we serve. I believe also that your database just got much more valuable in this process, given those are people that know you, like you, trust you, and we can help them navigate that. So how do we do that well? And I'm going to give you what I believe are sort of 8 facts right now that will help you be the educator, maybe help you answer the question, how's the market? One of the questions that comes up most often, because being able to answer questions right now and guide people is what our job is. It's what you can do in a time when you say, hey, I don't know all how this is going to play out in the fall and maybe what some of the implications are going to be in my state or my area, but I can be the educator. And so when you adopt that mindset as the educator, it then becomes, it's not a conversation about my opinion versus your opinion. It's your opinion versus the facts, right? And I want to share with people what's going on. I'm going to use 8 different slides from Keeping Current Matters. I'll explain those the best I can on this podcast. Obviously, it's an audio podcast. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube, but you can go to the show notes and you can grab these slides, because I think they're going to be ones that you're going to want to use as you're the educator in talking about really where we sit right now, almost halfway throughout the year, and what the second half of this year is going to look like. And the first, sort of fact that I want to talk about is home prices. At Keeping Current Matters, we stay on top of what forecasters are saying about this market and the projections they're giving us about home prices. And that's my first point. The average right now of the 7 forecasters that we follow is 2.9% price appreciation in residential real estate this year. If you go look at these slides, any of the forecasters that we follow go anywhere from 5% to 0.5% in residential appreciation this year. We started off the year talking about the year of the 5s, and I still believe we'll be closer to 5. This says almost 3% on the average of these forecasters, but I think we will see healthy appreciation in the market right now because there's still a lot of demand for homes across the country. There are not enough homes for the number of people that want to buy them. And that would be my first point. We'll see very average but strong appreciation in the market this year. The good news is we're not going to see appreciation like we've seen over the last couple of years of 10, 15, 20% out in the market. And that's a good thing, because that was a very unhealthy market relative to price appreciation. My second point relative to prices is, if you look at the forecasters that we follow, Goldman Sachs, Fannie, MBA, the Home Price Expectation Survey, Zillow, all the ones that are there, all but one have gotten more optimistic on their price projections as we've gone throughout the year. They started at a number that was lower and they've raised it up. The only one to make a downgrade there was Freddie Mac. They went from about 2.5% home price appreciation down to 0.5%. And I'm not really sure why, to be honest, but I'm including them in this because of the 7 we follow, 6 of them have raised their expectation, their level of price appreciation they think we'll see in this market. The reason I bring this up is because there are many people wondering, should I buy a home right now? Should I get into this market? Nobody wants to buy a home if they feel like prices are falling. There's a study that's done every month. It says, what are the percentage of people that believe homes will lose value over the next 12 months? And that number generally stands about 25%, 20% in the market. So if you were gathering with, maybe having dinner with 4 or 5 people tonight, one of those people thinks prices could lose value. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But being the educator today is stepping into the market, sharing with people what projections are, sharing the optimism that forecasters have in this market, and really the root of that optimism, which is people want to become homeowners. And there aren't enough homes to satisfy the demand for the number of people that do want to buy. Critical and important piece. The second thing that I want to share are mortgage rate projections. This year has almost been the case of the disappearing rate cuts. The Federal Reserve started off the year and said, we think we'll see 3 rate cuts this year. When they meet here in May, we'll have that answer. But right now it looks like maybe 1 rate cut, maybe none. We don't know. But the reality is if you look at projections that by the end of the year, we're probably somewhere around 6.5% on the 30-year fixed. Now, we thought starting off this year, we'd be in the 5s, dipping our toe in the 5s. That got a lot harder with, sort of 3 things that I would break down that you should pay attention to relative to mortgage rates. First is the geopolitical impact that, world events have on mortgage rates. conflict abroad, things happening where the economy and markets become uncertain. That has an impact on mortgage rates. Second thing, inflation. That has a big impact on mortgage rates. I've often said that inflation is the enemy of long-term interest rates, long-term mortgage rates, and we have to watch that. And the question is sort of on the table right now is inflation ticking back up? Is it heating back up? And the third thing is the response of the Federal Reserve to the economic situation in this country. The Federal Reserve does not control mortgage rates, but what they do is they control the Fed funds rate. So when you hear them, they're cutting rates, that's the Fed funds rate. Hopefully everybody listening to this knows that. But those three things are going to play out this summer: geopolitical events, inflation, what the Fed's doing, what they're saying in a lot of cases, which will have an impact on the rate environment. As we record this, the 30-year fixed sits around 7.5%. We've seen that jump up here in the last several weeks due to a sort of confluence of those factors. And I think as we go throughout the year, we'll see a better rate environment. These projections say maybe back down to around 6.5%, but it's going to rely heavily on the answers to those questions. The reason I bring this up, and there's a graphic in the slides that I'm going to reference that I would highly encourage you to go grab. The truth is, in the business right now, we live in a demand-based rate environment. And sort of 6.5% is the dividing line between, maybe weak or limited demand, between, get below 6.5% good, and maybe even strong demand, you get into the fives. I think even psychologically, we get into the fives and people say, I want to move forward, or I put off the search that I was looking for a new home because of mortgage rates. And I certainly think that will play out. Our job right now is to do a couple of things. One, if you're an agent listening, staying connected to a source of information on mortgage rates is critical. Keeping Current matters. We're going to do that. We're going to stay on top of it, give you the best information so that you can guide your clients forward effectively with this rate environment. Two, you have to have in this market a partner you can trust. That's the bottom line. You have to have a relationship that somebody you're linked arm in arm with, that's an extension of your team, that can give clients great advice. Because, conventional wisdom right now is, well, David, if rates are going to be at 6.5 by the end of the year and maybe even a little bit better going into next year, I'll just wait. Well, my question back there is, what do you think everybody else is going to do? What do you think they're going to do relative to the rate environment? Now is a time to be the professional educator, step out into the market and say, look, here's what I see happening. Let me help you make the best decision for you and your family. So prices, mortgage rates, certainly two very, very important topics. And I'll guarantee you this: if you put content out on these topics, you go make a reel, you go post something, whatever the case is, you will get people talking, no doubt, about what their opinions are in this market. The next piece of information that I want to cover is home sales. We've got the forecast from NAR, from MBA, from Fannie on what they believe 2024 home sales will look like. I can tell you, when you take existing home sales and new home sales, the high side of these projections about 5.5 million, to the low side about 5 million. Total home sales, new home sales, existing home sales in the country this year. The reason I bring that up, there's nobody that we work with on a day in, day out basis that probably cares how many homes we're going to sell in this country this year. But we care. We care in the business. And there's business out there for those that are stepping into the market. One of the things that fear has an impact on is our ability to confidently step in the market. It paralyzes some people. I've talked about that. It makes them kind of go, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure how to respond. I'm not sure what to say. I don't know what's going on with the NAR settlement or how that's going to impact things. But our job is to step out confidently and say, hey, here's what I see happening with prices. Here's what I see happening with mortgage rates. Here's what I know about home sales this year. And share that with those that we're working with. Even if we for a minute, and I'll include this in what we give you, even if I stay on the topic of home prices, the Home Price Expectation Survey, which is a collection of about 100 economists, market experts, academics that look at the housing market and they say, what's going to happen this year and for the next 5 years? They give a 5-year window for their look on home price appreciation. They're calling for very, very normal price appreciation in residential real estate. Not calling for depreciation, not calling for a market that's going to crater. And I even did a short, it was a deep dive that we did, and then we did I believe a reel on it that you can go back to KCM's Instagram and find, where we did, if you bought a home today, what would you then earn in equity over the next 5 years in the average home in this country? And I can tell you, the average home is about $400,000. You buy a home today, it's worth about $83,000 in equity earned over that time period. And so does it make sense to buy? Sure. Could you also say in some markets it's cheaper to rent dollar for dollar? Sure. The thing that always crushes that argument is the accumulation of equity. Right? And we have the facts and we have the numbers and we have the information to help show people that right now, because there are a lot of people saying, okay, should I move forward right now? There's instability in the world. There's instability in the economy. Mortgage rates feel like they're certainly higher than what they have been. Not a crazy environment relative to, historically what we would see in the 30-year fixed. But people asking those types of questions, I think all of this bears down on a couple of things. One, affordability in this country as a fact is tougher than it's been every year going back to the 90s. When you look at the rise in prices, the rise in mortgage rates, there are three things that go into affordability: the wages that people earn, prices, and mortgage rates. It's had an impact. It's harder to buy a home. You can still do it. You can absolutely do it. One of the things, I'll give you this, just I had done a deep dive on this on, even Gen Z. Can I buy a home right now? There are resources available. One of the ones that I love is downpaymentresource.com. If you go to downpaymentresource.com, you can find over 2,000 programs for affordable mortgages, for down payment assistance, all the things to help people achieve the dream of home ownership. And go check that out if you're looking for those resources, because being educated and being the educator in this market is critical. Last thing I'll cover, and we've got a great slide on this that you can grab again in the show notes, we're not in a market right now where we see this wave of foreclosures coming back in due to a lot of circumstances. But if you go back and you look at foreclosures from really 2009, kind of post great financial crisis, up until 2021, every year in this country, the number of foreclosures fell. And there are a lot of good reasons for that. Certainly in 2022 and last year in 2023, they rose. A lot of reasons for that. One, there was a moratorium on foreclosures. You literally couldn't foreclose on people. But we aren't even back to 2019 levels of foreclosures in this country. And I don't mean to talk about that topic in a sort of flippant way, but what I am saying is we're not in a market right now where there's this wave of foreclosures coming to bear, and there are really a couple of reasons for that, and I want to break those down as we sort of wrap up here. One, coming out of the great financial crisis and all of the sort of changes that were made relative to qualifying people for mortgages gave us a much more qualified borrower. You had to jump through many more hoops to buy a home, and I think we all know that. Second, people have been protecting their equity in their homes. If you've followed Keeping Current Matters, you know we've talked about the average equity in a home and how strong that is right now. So you have a better qualified borrower, they have more equity, and that gives you a better housing market, a much stronger housing market under the surface because, back in 2008, people owed more money on their homes than they were worth. They didn't have the equity and they walked. So there's not this case to be made. All these foreclosures are going to come in. That's going to crater prices, and somebody will be able to come in and snap up a deal. So I bring up all of these topics, and again, you can go in and grab the slides so you have the facts in the show notes to share with people, because these are the things that people are wondering about that we need to talk about. So many KCM members take this information, and maybe they're on their local news, maybe they're writing an article for their local, sort of paper or whatever the case is to get the word out about what is exactly happening in this market. And I think that's our job today. One of the things I'll give you as we wrap this up, inside of every KCM slide in the notes is a link to the source report. So any of the stuff that you see and you say, I wonder about that, I wonder about prices, I wonder about foreclosures, I wonder about home sales, you can go in the notes of the slide, grab the report, and share it with somebody if they ask. Maybe you're interested, but maybe somebody that you shared it with is interested. You can always grab that for them. So I'm going to wrap up here. My encouragement to you is to be the educator. Take this information, get out into the marketplace, and show people the way forward. Thanks for tuning into this session for How's the Market. This podcast is our goal to invite you into the conversations and invite you into what we do at Keeping Current Matters. And I hope that you can take this information and really use it to your benefit, really to the benefit of buyers and sellers. If you're here in our office, we have a wall that says we believe every family should feel confident when buying and selling a home, and that's what drives our team to produce all the content that we produce. So if you haven't done it, go into the show notes, grab the link to the slides, download those slides, and use them to be the educator today.